I remember him going like, Dave, look at how far you've come. Like, you're focused on what's in front of you, but like you were 600 pounds, man. Like, that encouragement, that was like the first, like, okay, this is different.
If there was one thing the world was asking for, it was for one more podcast about CrossFit. Well, here we are anyways. This is the Silverback Media Podcast, where we share the stories of the everyday CrossFitter, so that more people are encouraged and empowered to try it themselves. Here's your host, an everyday CrossFitter, Marco Mejia.
When I walked into my first gym, everyone looked like superheroes. I felt like I didn't belong. But the truth is, we were all insecure, all on our own paths. If I had listened to that initial judgment, I would have missed out on the pure privilege of being impacted by this community. And that quote is from an article that was recently published on CrossFit.com on the main website about David Fennell. The name of the article is The Differentiator is CrossFit. David Fennell goes from 550 pounds to strict pull-ups. And I am honored and lucky to have David as the guest on this week's episode. We get to go through his story as it's laid out in the article and add in details to support what was happening in his life throughout the time that is and how it's laid out in the article, from recognizing and working through food addiction to different weight loss cycles and the challenges and hurdles that he had to overcome all along the way, to ultimately finding CrossFit and how that supported his mental health, his physical health up until this day. And I'm going to give you guys a link to the article itself in the show notes. I highly, highly encourage you to go read that article. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put that article, a link to it right here. I hope I put my finger on the right side of the screen, so that way you can click that and go check that out, and then come back and listen to David's full story here. David now trains out of CrossFit Zachary in Louisiana. Super appreciative to Dave for coming on, for giving the amount of time, and for being open and vulnerable about his story. And now I'm going to cut this intro short because you guys just need to hear this story. Okay. So now that is 19 down and 10,000 to go, and let's go talk to David. All right, Dave, thank you for joining the show, man. I appreciate this. And, I'll mention this in the intro before we get to this point, but Dave was, featured in an article on CrossFit.com, just came out. The title of the article is The Differentiator is CrossFit. David Fennell goes from 550 pounds to strict pull-ups, which that in itself, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds like a wild journey. And the article is so well written, and it's your story, and we're here to kind of unpack some of the details behind it. So my first question for you really is about how did this even come about, the article with CrossFit, right? Did you get a message on Instagram one day? Like, how does that even happen where you get connected and realize that, hey, CrossFit wants to write an article about your story?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on. I know we made it happen pretty quick, so I was glad to have the schedule opening to do it. So it was real simple. I got rid of social media roughly, I don't know, it's been six months or so ago now. So I had Instagram and Facebook primarily. I never had TikTok, never looked into Reddit. It just, but listen, I'm a human. I'm a phone addict, just like anybody else. And so with Instagram and Facebook gone away, I kind of gravitated towards, and you can kind of control your algorithm a little bit more on TikTok and even Reddit, right? Like, I pick what I subscribe to. So when I got into Reddit, I initially just found CrossFit subreddit, and it was really good stuff. Like, I just kind of dove in, and I'm a bit of a nerd. I think part of the journey through CrossFit leads you through that nerddom, right? Which I think is healthy. And stuff that I really enjoy. I just, from the moment I stepped in the CrossFit gym, I kind of just dove deep, right? Just watching YouTube and really diving into, from the people that are a part of the sport to social media. It just really, I can remember Craig Ritchie's one of my favorite follows. And I remember just nerding out watching Craig Ritchie lift. And I still do.
So was it nerding out on on the technique components? Just
on all of it.
Here's some different, all of it. Okay, cool.
All of it. Yeah. It didn't matter, man. I was just a sponge. I was just soaking everything up. And I kind of found that Reddit was very much that way. It was just very random questions, or sometimes, hey, what shoes do you wear? And I love rads, so I can communicate, hey, I like these shoes, right? So you're getting to interact with the community in a little bit different way. And so essentially what happened is I posted my first post. I had commented, but I had never posted. And I had just been seeing community members really just struggling, man. Just whether it be, strength struggles or progress struggles or weight struggles. And look, man, as you're going to find out, like that, all of those things are very kind of touch me a little bit. Like when I know people are struggling, I tend to be the type of guy that's like, all right, like where can I fit? Like, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I had never told my story. And realistically, where this stems from is since I've been involved in CrossFit, so January of this year will be 3 years. Okay. Since I've been involved with CrossFit, every 12 months, I write this like little in my iPhone notes called Food Addiction to CrossFit box. I just do it on my own. I enjoy writing. I do have a Substack. I don't do it enough, but I really enjoy writing. It's just kind of a creative outlet for me. So my first year, and I can share it with you, my first year, and it's actually in that Reddit, I just wrote 12 things that I learned. Because I think for me to be able to collect my thoughts, right? Like not just have a thought, but like really think through not just what I feel, but why I feel it is really important. And so there were some lessons that I learned that year that I was like, man, yeah, this stuff's so on my mail. Maybe this will help somebody. So I posted a photo of my before, which is my wife and I, and that was my 40th birthday. I don't know exactly what I weighed. We were in Boston. Matter of fact, I had just been into Fenway Park and couldn't fit in my seat, and we had to leave. Which is part of what like kicked some of this off. But
I was curious if there was like a moment there, but that sounds like
obviously embarrassed, right? Like you're like, damn, I can't fit in my seat. This is crazy. So that photo was taken right after that, and anyways, the after picture was us at this. We lived like north of Baton Rouge, so at this Texas club, we went to see a concert on my birthday, around my birthday, and so it's a giant transition. Like in that photo, I'm probably 230. In my before photo, I'm like 550, 560. And so it was just kind of one, and maybe even heavier. Like I might, like we talked before we started recording, I probably was real close to 600 pounds. Like I know for sure that the shorts I had on were like 62s. And I know the shirt I had on was a 7X. And the hat I still have today was a size 8 fitted. So I was a giant individual. And you can see, there's actually another photo that goes alongside that where I'm meeting this chef, and you can see my legs, and like you could see my ankles, like the edema in my ankles and the swelling that's gone on. So it's a little bit more pronounced, but I was very, very heavy. So I just posted it. Like, here's my 12 things. Here's a little quip about kind of my journey. Yeah. And it blew up. Like, I think the last time I looked, it had almost 400,000 views. There's, 5,000 upvotes, and on a subreddit, that's a ton of exposure. So I got this random message, and I don't know who the heck it is because it's some random Reddit name, but they were just like, hey, I work for CrossFit HQ. We saw your story. Would you be interested in like doing an interview? And so then a few weeks later, Nicole Payton reached out, and we kind of started going back and forth on Gmail, just email. She sent me some questions. I wasn't real sure the format of the article. I thought it was going to be more interview based, and the way she did it, I thought it was really neat. So I just kind of, as transparently and openly as possible, kind of told my story through that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and it comes through in that article. I mean, the chapters, and obviously we'll get into all of it, right? But that's crazy. What do you think that? And I know kind of we'll get into the story itself. What do you think that the transition or the before and after pictures that you posted, right? What do you think struck with people? I mean, there's for sure the visual component of it, but then to have that many, but like if you had to kind of think through like what the reason was that struck with so many people, or that resonated with so many people, like what would you chalk that up to?
Well, I think first off, it's my wife and I both. So like we're both heavy in that photo. I think she's got to be 250. And so, you see the after photo and like, it's giant. Like my transition alone is close to 370 pounds. Right. And I would say hers is 80, 85. Like we both had a pretty substantial change. And so those photos, and like, not only did she lose weight, like her body has changed. Like she looks like a CrossFitter. Like she, you know what I mean? Like she's got muscle mass and looks very fit. And it's just kind of, So I think that comes across. And people in the CrossFit community, when you just see individuals, I don't really carry that frame. Like I look pretty skinny in my mind, and I'm cool with that. But like my wife definitely carries some of those attributes of a female CrossFitter that does this consistently and has for a long period of time. And so it's very, when you see the market transition just visually, it's giant. And then I think there's probably a solace that I don't even necessarily pick up on that people do, right? Just a different, man, I'm not like mystic at all, but, you know, just like there's a different aura about you when you're a little bit more confident and a little bit more, I think, just dialed in.
Yeah, I could see that. I believe that. Man, that's crazy. So that's cool to hear how that all came about, and just the willingness of you to even put that out there, right? With the lessons you've learned and how that kind of took hold with people and led to this. So with that, let's get into the story itself, right? So kind of roll it back to the beginning of the article. Mentions, you growing up, you were athletic, grew up playing sports, right? It mentions, and I've got the article up here, so if you see me kind of looking off, that's me reading really quick, right? So football, wrestling, basketball. You mentioned jujitsu and other things that you got into. So it sounds like you were pretty active growing up, right? Was that organized sports? Was that kind of gathering friends and playing around? Was it a combination of both?
Yeah, as a both. So like I'm from Northwest Ohio originally, from a little town called Fremont. I was born in Toledo. My family's based out of Toledo. And then my mom moved when I was young. We moved to this little town, 20,000 people town called Fremont, Ohio. Now here's the thing. Fremont was a hyper athletic little town, like same high school as Charles Woodson. I don't know if you're a football fan, but like Charles Woodson's probably the second best cornerback to ever play the game of football. Mark Coleman, first UFC heavyweight champion.
He's from, that name sounded familiar.
Yeah. Wrestled at Ohio State. Man, I could go on and on. There are a lot of people from there. Rob Lytle played for the Denver Broncos back in the day. There's just a lot of D1 athletes, and it's a very competitive athletic town. And there's something about the North. And here's the deal. Like my background is like, it's funny because I'm a 44-year-old white dude, but my background is like just your typical ghetto story. I'm a only child, single parent family, like raised in a government housing project. So in some ways I was the minority in my neighborhood.
Interesting. Okay.
And so from a very young age, like I've just always been gritty. Like my dad was a very good wrestler. On my dad's side of the family, wrestling was like a really big deal. My mom's father was a professional boxer. So there's like some of that there. So there's like a genetic weird disposition, but I've just always been a gritty kid. And so when you grow up the minority in the hood, essentially, I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't the fastest, strongest. Like I wasn't any of those things. So I had to rely on my competitiveness and my grit. What's funny is like my stepson's 14 and we talk about this often. And like, I feel like when I'm telling him stories, it comes across like I was this tough guy, violent, and I just wasn't. I never was. I was always just a very nice kid. I treated people well, probably a bit of a pushover with no boundaries. That certainly surfaced in my adulthood. But if we were competing, I was relentless. I was always just kind of that kid. My best friend growing up was a 4th round draft pick in 2002 by the Padres, like an elite athlete.
Nice.
He was a pitcher and an incredible football player. Like could have played D1. So like I was playing against kids on a consistent basis that like your average kid growing up in a neighborhood doesn't get to play against, right? Like that's part of that too. But there were quips of wrestling as a kid. My dad was never present enough for wrestling to be like a consistent pattern. I tended to wrestle when my dad would pop in. So like if my dad happened to pop up and was around during wrestling season, then I wrestled bitty wrestling. Even through high school, I had some shoulder issues. And so I wrestled my sophomore year. But then like my junior and senior year, my first cousin was a wrestler and a really good wrestler at a small school in Toledo. And I would just go to bitty tournaments. I would just go to AAU tournaments in the off season with them. And there were times I would place in those tournaments just because I was more aggressive than the kids I was wrestling with. Like I just have always had this weird ability to just flip the switch and go, right? I was the kid that like my coaches would be screaming at, "You're not taking this serious." And I'm like, "Yes, I am. I'm just not wasting my energy." And then as soon as I stepped on the field, it was on, right? So like probably where the falling in love with CrossFit happened, right? There was just that competitive nature to it that I was like, "Oh yeah, I like this."
Yeah, that's okay. That's
yeah,
what came to
yeah.
mind as you were describing that. I mean, I'm sure getting into CrossFit, like there's certain workouts for sure. I mean, there's, for anybody, of course, there's a skill component, technique, all that good stuff. There is absolutely a place for being able to flip that switch and say, when 3, 2, 1, go happens, I'm going to go for it. Right. So I'm sure that was
I'm actually
absolutely
less competitive 3 years in than I probably was day one. Typically because my wife can beat me pretty much in anything, and so like the pride in me is just like, I ain't competing, man. There's
the
times
humble pie aspect of it, right?
yeah. She kills me. There's things that like I will compete with, row, bike. There's things that I feel like that I know I can be, but I tell her all the time, I'm only competing with stuff I know I can win. Like, and that's literally like 1.5% of the sport. I can't beat her anything else. And and after this shoulder surgery and losing, I dropped some more weight, which means I dropped some strength. She's really even probably stronger than me in like some stuff. So I'm not winning at all. Like really,
Yeah. So you're like, I'm just going to take my spot. I have just one quick story, because my wife and I can be a little bit competitive like that too. And there was one specific time, it was an open workout a couple years ago. It was the one with the shuttle runs and the burpee pull-ups. I think it was 2023, maybe. Either way. And we were right next to each other in a lane, going at the same time. And I went out so hot because I was like, I'm going to, you're next year. I feel like I'm going to go for it. Right.
Yeah.
Boy, did that backfire on me, and she smoked me. So I learned my lesson that day. I'm like, I gotta be a little bit more strategic about this. So I'm trying to compete with her.
I learned really early with her. Like I got in the CrossFit gym about 3 months before she did, and she was a part of another program and then joined me. And it wasn't long that I was like, oh, dude, like, and this is the thing, she beats me at everything for real, video games, like everything. So it gets to be so like we get into CrossFit and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to do this. No, like I just figured out really quickly, like, and I'll say this publicly, like I'm at this point, I just feel like this is the truth. I really believe women are better at it than men overall. Some of your elite athletes might not want to hear that, but I think like there's a pain threshold that women can handle that a lot of men can't. And I think that there's a dig deep that women have and a resiliency that women have that men don't always have. And like there's some of those women, dude, that I watch that I'm like, what? Like, it's crazy to me. And our first box was in northeastern Pennsylvania, NEPA CrossFit. It closed a few years ago, but there were some, like Sam Pugh was on the Franco's team this year that placed, I think, top 5. So like we got to see her train for semifinals and like the grit, right? So like we were exposed to some really higher level CrossFit athletes pretty early in our journey. And so listen, man, it just kind of bleeds over. Like there's an intensity level that you kind of adapt to.
For sure. So no, I hadn't quite thought about that, but I believe that makes a ton of sense when you put it that way. And I'm sure then when you see an athlete at that level like that in person, right, and you're like, oh my goodness, that is some serious grit that they can show. So kind of taking it back to, so we talked about, kind of growing up a little bit, right, through school, wrestling, football, and then you get into the oil and gas industry. And was that after college? Did you did you keep up with the sports and things through college years, or like at what point did you get into working in that industry?
Hey, quick interruption from me. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, I have a favor to ask of you. The main way that this thing can continue to spread is through word of mouth. So if you're enjoying this episode, send it to someone or share it with someone that may benefit from it or enjoy it as well. Leave a comment, drop a 5-star review, follow the show, share about it on social media. That's the main way that we can help get this message out to others so we can continue to spread this, okay? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, so I had some opportunity to play college sports, and it just didn't work out. I was a young 17-year-old kid who was 8 hours from home. I went to Liberty University right out of high school. I was 8 hours from home, and I left in the middle of the first semester. So then I ended up back home and like, okay, what do I do? Now, at that point, I'm still pretty competitive. And I played football at 310 pounds. I was a center, but I was always very athletic, man. Like my fastest mile time at 300 pounds was like 6:45. Like I just always had a weird, I always had a weird ability to do things that like guys my size couldn't do. Look, and that carried on even into when I was 400, 500 pounds plus. I've always been a really hard worker. I've always been willing to kind of go above and beyond. I've never felt like my weight is an excuse to not get a job done. And so I just force myself to do things that the average guys my size wouldn't force themselves to do. And therefore I could do them. Right. So I get back home. I'm just like, look, I got to get out of here. I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't want to go to school for real. I coach some football, but there's no money in that. And so my youth pastor from high school lived in Farmington, New Mexico. I called him and I was like, hey man, I want to come out there. And so at 20 years old, with a beat up Volkswagen Jetta with 4 bald tires and like $400 to my name, I drove from Fremont, Ohio to Farmington, New Mexico to start my new life. And, that's kind of when the oil and gas stuff happened. Like, that's a big oil and gas area. I had never heard of it. Like, I didn't grow up with a dad teaching me to turn wrenches. Like, I didn't have any of that, but I kind of end up in this environment. And then just through some relationships, I was given an education. So the class opened up. A guy was like, hey man, I'll let you in this class if you pass the aptitude test, which I did. And then that led to my first job for a company called Cooper Compression. They don't exist any longer, but that was kind of my entry into the career. And then, I went through a divorce a year later, ended up back in Ohio, and was like working in a factory. That's kind of when some of the weight gain happened. At that point, I had just started to really begin to understand that the food addiction that I had been exposed to from my mother growing up, I also had. I just had never put 2 and 2 together. It was like, oh man, and listen, like it happens in stages, but it's just like behavioral. So I could see myself, going to the gas station and loading up on stuff that I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 calories of garbage. And then just that behavior continuing. I never, at that point in my life, I hadn't tied them to a mental health issue or to emotions, but I knew that I had it. It was like, you're gaining weight rapidly. There's a reason for this, right? So that second stint back home after high school, I probably put on quite a bit of weight. And I don't know, I had an opportunity to move to Louisiana about a year after Katrina. When I moved to Louisiana, I was probably, probably 360, so like a 50-pound weight gain from that 310 range. And I kind of maintained that 300 to 320 the whole time I was out west. And then that divorce, going back home, losing everything, having to start to build my life back, and then moving to Louisiana, I probably gained 50 pounds. And then when I got down to Louisiana, my first go around in 2006, that was to work in the Gulf of Mexico on offshore oil platforms, production platforms. And so I was a mechanic. That's what I went to school to do, to work on big natural gas compressors until I started that life down here. But in months, I'm not kidding you either, I was 400 pounds. Like, I'll never, to this day, man, I'll never forget. I was at Airlog Galliano. Airlog is owned by a company called Bristow. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen that oil rig show, the oil rig movie with Mark Wahlberg, they show a heliport. It's like Golf Horizon.
I can't picture the name. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So in that movie, the heliport that he leaves out of this is the heliport I'm talking about. I crew changed out of there.
Oh wow.
And they make you weigh yourself. And I stepped on that scale and I was 406. And
is that I remember the first time you had seen the 4?
Yeah, for sure. And I remember the amount of shame that I felt, like, with everybody standing around. There's this lady taking my weight. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, dude, I'm 400 pounds.
Oh my
But
goodness.
for whatever reason, it didn't change anything. And so my time in the Gulf of Mexico, which was like 2006 to 2013, I fluctuated quite a bit, but I got as high as 480. But again, man, even at 480, I'm running platforms, running stairs, working on engines. Like, it was hard. And it's hot, and I'm an FR clothing, but like fire resistant clothing, but I did it. I just did it.
There's probably some of that grit that you kind of developed or had as a kid, right? Just still showing through.
Sure.
And you're like, hey, job needs to be done. Let's go get it done. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's kind of that trend. And listen, when you live on these platforms, production platforms especially, people have these minds of platforms that are like, there's a cook. And look, I worked production on the shelf. These platforms were old. They weren't big producers, which means we didn't have a ton of money. So we cooked mostly ourselves. Right. But you're literally living in a convenience store on the water. And my go-to is sugar. Like I am a sugar addict. To this day, I struggle with it. And so, it's like boxes of candy bars and gallons of ice cream. And then you add like the Louisiana element because this food down here is legit, right? So like
Cajun food, right? Good old fashioned Cajun food. Yeah.
Yeah. So you add that element to it where it's fried food and rice and gravy and gum, it's like that side as well, on top of just a voracious sugar addiction. And again, I could think back to those times, like before I go to bed, snagging 5 or 6 Little Debbie's in a candy bar to go down to my room and turn on the TV and watch TV by myself and binge. And that happened very consistently, over the course of those years. I was never a soda drinker. It's funny, when you grow up in an obese family, you tend to drink diet soda, and so to this day, I still do. That old joke, like, right, like I take a number 5 with the Diet Coke. Well, that's real. And so I never had really a soda issue in terms of like drinking my calories, but I certainly would on a consistent basis binge eat poor food at night. And, and it was always in private. Like I would sneak this and mash it real fast and then hide the wrapper in the trash can. And it was kind of like some of that behavior that I was fully understanding existed, probably not to a level where I was willing to change it necessarily. But again, I had never really made the connection between that and it being a mental health issue. And so that took years.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No, so that took years. Like that time happened late. But I was very cognizant of my food addiction. Like it was never I've always been a pretty introspective dude. And so I kind of understood what I was going through. I'm not always willing to admit it, at least publicly, but generally, like if there's issues there, I'm pretty self-aware that they're there. And the thing about obesity, especially like at that level, I mean, eventually your clothes don't fit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there comes a point.
There's some pretty obvious signs that things happen, right? And you're like, oh, yeah.
You only hide it for so long. So, yeah.
You had mentioned in there being aware of the food addiction, right? Did you can you remember a moment where you became aware of that, where you were like, oh, I think this might be, and I don't know if maybe the term maybe you didn't have the term food addiction in mind at the time, but where you became aware of like what you were doing or how you were using food, if that's the right way to put it. I don't know if that, came earlier on, or when you became aware that was, something you were doing, or that was happening.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that in like the mental health world that always drives me nuts is like the idea that we're addicted to any one thing. So I think like for me, the connection was just that I was a self-medicator overall, right? There was food was certainly, my easiest escape. But I can think back to like using hard drugs and, blowing money, gambling, sex stuff, like just stuff that like real, raw, like stuff that I'm not proud of. But I don't think there was anything during, those years of active addiction that I didn't run to. And I don't think there was any one thing that I wouldn't have ran to if I needed a fix. Food just kind of provided the easy out. I think at some point, like I think when you're, those behaviors end up being very risky and very extreme. And so there were times where I found myself in very risky and very extreme circumstances and coming out and being like, all right, I got an issue. Like but again, like the understanding of how to fix it, the understanding of like what that looks like, the understanding of, and listen, this is going to sound crazy, but the understanding of what it would feel like to feel somewhat whole, like, right? Like there's a health aspect to that where you're a little bit afraid, because I think there's a part of it, there's a comfort, there's a homeostasis in just being messed up. And it affected everything in my life, man. Like my current marriage is my third marriage. Like my mental health and some of those behaviors, I think affected every relationship probably at some point in my life to some degree.
My gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And so I've had a couple other guests on before that have, dealt with and suffered with addictions of varying natures, right? We'll say. And the thing that you mentioned, there was a piece you mentioned in there. Well, a couple pieces, right? One was that it was, you used the term escape. which seems to be like a common one, that there's something to be that people are trying to escape from,
Sure.
and they're turning to this. And part of it is, like you said, there's this. I'm trying to find the right way to put it. The way you phrased it was like there's this hole that they're trying to fill, or making sure that they're there it is, a comfort in the way that they are, and almost a fear of, well, if I stop or try to get help, like what is going to come of that. And that
Sure.
ends up being I had one guy on that he went through the 12 steps program. He said, I think it's called like a jumping off point, might have been the way they termed it. I don't remember if that's the exact term, but it's this point where you're like, okay, yes, I'm comfortable with what I've been doing to, escape up to this point, but I know that going forward, if I continue that's not going to be good, a good direction. But I also have no clue what the next step is going to look like, but I know I need to take it anyways. Which is it's when you thinking about it from that perspective, right, and hearing that in your story there too, I can't imagine I don't know if fear is the right way to put it, but almost like if I had to come up with a word, fear of like, well, what does next look like if I even wanted to start trying to make this happen? When do you feel like that started to come into your mind? Because you even mentioned, right, that episode on the heliport where you step on there, you see 4 for the first time, and you got other people around. You're like, oh crap! But that there was still more to the story before you got to that point of like, okay, something needs to happen, something needs to change.
Yeah, way more. So like, it's funny, the time frame that I'm talking about, I was like 26, 27.
Okay.
So like that didn't happen till I hit 40.
Okay.
And I lived in that another roughly 15 years, right? Like listen, man, I think about this. There's even an element to the church. Like I grew up in the church. And so like there was always this, like, this is probably where you need to run. And I would step in, and people are people. Like, this doesn't need to be a giant faith conversation, but I had just as much like wounds, or just as many wounds from that part of my life as I did from the other side. And so I was just always kind of caught in this like weird, I don't know, solitude. Like I was an only child growing up, and then I had to do things a lot on my own, and I didn't trust my environment. And there was a lot of trauma from that. Like we don't need to get into that, but just that early childhood stuff was dark and left me in some dark places. And so granted, probably very responsible for creating the resilient, gritty guy that I am. I always understood how to survive, and I've always been very comfortable in survival mode. And one thing about addiction is it puts you in a very long, like, term relationship with surviving, and I was just great at it. And so I don't know if I if I ever even had the desire. Like I think I was a fighter, and I would lose weight and gain weight and lose 100 pounds and gain 120, and like I never quit. There was never a point over even that next 15 years that I stopped trying to lose weight. I would just do really well for a short time and then literally spiral out of control. And it's tiring to live that life. And I think it's your typical addict story. Like you hear that from anybody that's went through addiction, right? Alcoholism, drug addiction. It's the same story, man. Like it's a constant, this vicious, you abuse, you shame, you spiral. That shame creates the spiral. And it's just this constant, like you just have no control.
It's going back and forth.
It changed for me 2000. I don't even know what year, but the year I turned 40. So 2021. So really weird. So Labor Day of 2020, I was exposed to Andy Frisella's 75 Hard.
Okay. Yep.
And my wife and I made, I still haven't figured out if it was the best decision, but I'm proud of us for doing it. It was really hard, man.
I had some thoughts. People that know me, I've gone through it. I have my own thoughts on that program, but that's for a different day.
Look,
that's a conversation.
I very much appreciate Andy, and I developed a relationship through going through that with the guy from First Form that I'm super thankful for to this day. But I was probably 550. I did not step on a scale before I did it, because in my mind, like, and Andy says this, and I love this about the program, it's a mental health program. It's not about like weight loss. So my wife and I just were like, we're going to do it. Right. And so the Tuesday after Labor Day of 21, we started knowing that we would end like the week of Thanksgiving. Okay. When I started that program, and I could only walk, like I wasn't fit. I was giant. I remember the very first, this is hilarious to think about now, but there was so much atrophy in my lower body, just muscular atrophy, that I was walking down the street. That's all I could do is walk down the street and walk back for 45 minutes. The first day I popped or pulled both of my calf muscles on my very first walk.
Oh my gosh.
Walking downhill. And I remember like I'm literally hobbling back after 45 minutes. Like, oh my gosh, this is day one and this is day one first workout. I still have to
workout one. I got to come back later today. Yeah.
Right. But because my wife and I were doing it together, like there's that competition. I was like, I'm not missing, man. I'm going to do this. And we went through some stuff, man, to make some stuff happen. Like we bought a dog and traveled, and there was some crazy stuff that kind of occurred, and we're out there trying to get it in. When we finished, it was November 23rd. Like we were in a real groove. I don't remember how much weight she lost, but it was a good amount. And I remember I stepped on the scale and I think I was 450. So I know I had lost close to 100 pounds. And we were going to the gym, conventional gym, Anytime Fitness. I was moving again. Like I could run. I was boxing a little bit. Like I was back in kind of my athletic groove. Super heavy, but I still could get it done. I remember we went into Thanksgiving. In the morning of Thanksgiving that week, we got up and went to the gym together. So like we were, I would say disciplined. And then the state of Pennsylvania shut in like 3 weeks later. He, due to COVID-19, the end of that year, he shut everything down for 3 weeks. Oh no. And I spiraled again. Like and I would say we both did. My wife and I both did. So like by April.
Do you feel like, oh, sorry to cut you
off. No, go ahead.
Was that one of those when the shutdown happened? Because I can imagine coming out of 75 hard and coming off of the routine of that, especially if you stick to it the whole way, which sounds like you both did, and doing it together, which goodness gracious, at least you're both rowing the boat in the same direction, not to use a cheesy analogy there, right? Did you guys try to keep it up when the lockdown happened? And then as you just realized like things shut down and it's like, well, I can't do this. I can't do that. And then it kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of started to fall apart from there.
Yeah. 100%. But it's Northeast PA and it's winter. I mean, it's like, there's a realistic side to this. That's like, you want me to be outside in negative, 35 degree weather. Like there's just an element of it that like shut us down. And so, I would say we made the attempt and we probably held on, but like eventually that spiral took over, or the holidays come and, and by March, April of 22, I'd gained every pound or I'm sorry. I'm wrong. March, April 21, I had gained every pound I lost back.
My gosh. And what was going through your mind at that time, right? Because now you made the progress, and I don't know because you'd said like there was that, stretch of call it 13, 14 years before 75 hard where it was, cycling, losing weight, gaining weight, losing. And was there a part of you that even coming off of this that you were like, oh, I did it again? What was that thought?
Yeah. But for whatever reason, so I was 39 getting ready to turn 40 and that was the moment I gave in. Like, I just was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm powerless to this addiction. I'm tired of fighting it. I'm tired of gaining and losing. And so I just messaged my wife one day from work, and I was like, look, I'm having weight loss surgery. I'm going to figure this out. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to die before I'm 45. Like, I can't do this. So initially I started, I have good insurance. So I started to work through that, but then there were some provider issues, and that pushed me to another like provider in the next few counties over. Well, in the oil and gas industry, like you kind of cycle construction years, and that was a very busy construction year for me. And I was supervisor of operations at that point. So I had, a pretty large team and a lot of responsibility. And I just knew I couldn't, like when I dug into it, I couldn't miss the work time. So I was like, all right, I got to find a self-pay option. So I think if I remember right, there was a self-pay option in Birmingham that was like 10 grand. And there was a self-pay option in Las Vegas that was like 15. But through that research, I came across a clinic in Mexico, a bunch of clinics in Mexico, and kind of got exposed to this whole like travel, surgery, like medical tourism, if you will. And I found a surgeon that worked between Puerto Vallarta, Guadalajara, and Tijuana. He had done like 13,000 surgeries, no medical cases, no fatalities, he hadn't been sued. So I reached out and gave him my BMI, essentially did the math for him and put a $500 deposit on, but I set that deposit for November. So that allowed me to get the work done that year. And you would think, like, being stoked to have weight loss surgery, I would have started losing weight, and I didn't. I just kept gaining. Like, I kind of took it as a free pass, if you will.
Last hurrah, so to speak.
Yeah, which again is very common with addicts. If you get into like the addicts, like those addicts will be like, well, the night before I go to rehab, I'm partying it up, right? Like that's, you just watch those shows. You'll see it on, I forgot, AE channel used to have a show, like that addiction show. And like all those people the night before they were rehab were like, well, I'm going to tie one on tonight right before I go to rehab. Well, mine just happened to be mine just happened to be like 6 months of that. And so, but some crazy stuff, man, that year. So it gets even crazier, which is, I know, hard to believe. But in August of that year, so I live at that point like 7 hours from home. So my mom was back in Fremont, and I got a phone call from her friend, and she was like, hey, look, I don't know if you know this, but your mom's not doing well. And we kind of had some suspicions. Like my wife and her talked every day, and there was a period where that just kind of stopped. It was weird. But, they still would talk, just not as often. And so I got that call in August, like, hey, she's in a psych ward. And I'm like, what? And
oh my gosh.
Short story, she just started to have a lot of pain and popping into the emergency room. Obviously, fentanyl issue in America. They think she's there for pain pills. She wasn't. And like the 6th or 7th time that happened, she finally was like, well, look, if you send me home and don't treat me, like I'm just going to off myself. So they coded her and put her in a mental hospital. So I got the call, and my mom was very smart. So she knew what she was doing. Like she knew she could get the care if she went in there and had time to explain what was going on. So I went and saw her in the mental hospital, and we talked. She had a pretty good idea of what was going on, but wasn't sure. And then they confirmed it. So they gave her a PET scan, and she lit up like a Christmas tree and had cancer all over the place. Oh. And so what was happening was the pain that she thought, because she was so heavy and had so much atrophy, that she had hip and leg pain because of that atrophy. What actually was the case is she had a fractured hip and 2 fractured femurs, and she couldn't walk. Like the pain, she couldn't get to the bathroom. Like it was bad.
Are those like almost like stress fractures?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I don't know. I we never got like a super in-depth analysis, but she had kidney. They had found a tumor on her kidney around COVID, or right before COVID happened, and she got that kidney removed. And then through COVID, I think was supposed to do some checkup stuff and never did. And when kidney cancer comes back, it's oftentimes fatal. And so that's kind of what happened. It's terminal. So that renal cancer came back and was all over her body. And so the sequence of events is really kind of wild. So she ended up in a nursing home on that 100-day, like Medicaid or whatever gives you that 100 days. She ended up there trying to rehab some stuff. And then November 4th, she passed away. November 12th, we buried her. November 15th, I flew to Mexico to have weight loss surgery. And November 19th, I came home.
Whoa.
And when she passed, so like when she passed, there were a lot of people that were like, Dave, you got to put off your weight loss surgery. But I don't think what people understood is, like, for me, that was my life or death moment. Yeah. So I'm watching my mom pass away. I'm the only child. It's like I did her eulogy at our church. Like I kind of had to own a lot of that. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like I watched her yo-yo her weight my whole life and struggle with food addiction her whole life. And even though that's not what killed her, it certainly didn't add to the lack of comfort that happened at the end, right? Because if she'd have had those fractures and would have been a healthy weight, it would have been much more manageable. But 350 pounds, like you're not managing that.
Yeah.
And so,
oh my gosh,
I'm like, no, dude, I'm going to Mexico. Like, I don't care how heartbroken I am that my mom passed. Like, I'm going to Mexico. And that's what we did, man. Like, we buried her, drove back to PA the next day, flew out from Newark on the 15th to Puerto Vallarta, my wife and I. I had surgery the 16th. We came back from that the 19th. And so that first year, look, man, things are changing. My mom's gone. I can't eat. Like, I can't really explain that next 6 months. Trying to relearn a relationship with food, but then like nothing you eat is comfortable. Like everything I eat, I feel like it's getting stuck in my esophagus. And I'm like, this is a pain in the butt. Like but I lost my first 100 pounds in less than 3 months. It was 2.5 months. Like I had surgery November what did I say? The 16th. Yeah. By January, my wife's looking at me, but I think by January I had lost my first 100 pounds. And so like, the weight was flying off. Right.
Was that expected? I mean, I'm sure to some extent, right? But was there a part of you that was like, oh goodness, this is happening. This is what I was, this is what I was hoping for out of this surgery.
Yeah, certainly. But I think my results, like I had the gastric sleeve, and even then that decision, like I had the gastric sleeve because in my brain, I would mess this up and have to go back and have gastric bypass revision. That's why I chose gastric sleeve. So the results on gastric sleeve are quite a bit less than gastric bypass. And I blew those results out of the water. So like,
oh my gosh. Okay.
That's where some of that grit comes in. Right. But I don't know. Like I just kind of knew it was happening and I couldn't control it. Like I couldn't eat. Like it wasn't really a matter of like, I don't feel like I was doing anything, but I was relearning like my relationship with food and that I didn't have to be so dependent and then I could still be a thriving adult on way less food.
So how did that? What did that rebuilding of that relationship look like? Like, did you work with someone? Was it, were you kind of doing your own research? You were just like, all right, I'm going to figure out what this means to me now, different than what it did before. Like, what did that look like day to day?
Yeah, I think just trial and error. There would be times where like I would want sugar and I would consume, and it just didn't sit well, right? Like I would get nauseous or like I didn't feel well, and so. Just trial and error. I mean, listen, I feel like as a guy, sometimes we have to like go through pain to learn. At least me.
Bash our head against the wall 5 or 6 times before we realize, I should stop doing that. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, like I'm not one of those people that's like, I saw that happen to him. That wouldn't happen to me. I'm like, I can do that, and right, that's how I'm wired. And so I went through a lot of those moments of like eating too much and being sick, and then eventually you just kind of figure it out. Like, okay. Yeah. I need to sustain. That's what I'm after. But like that went up till probably like August. So in August, I'd probably went from, 530 on the operating table down to like 280. I was probably 280 in August. And I played in this the company I work for is our Big in United Way. And so I did this United Way event where we played softball. And I'll never forget like smashing the softball and running to first base and being like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Like, this is weird.
That probably had to be how long had it been since you had been around that body weight at that point?
Oh, dude, at 280, probably my sophomore, junior year of high school.
Sophomore, junior year of high school. And now you're
41.
41.
Yeah.
Wow. So to be able to move like that again, you were probably like, whoa, this is wild.
Well, as a matter of fact, it happened. That event was the day before my birthday. My birthday's August 20th. That was August 19th. So I still was 40, but getting ready to turn 41. But that running, I think, like this is going to sound crazy. And there's doctors that are going to probably watch this and think I'm nuts, but I feel like it knocked some kidney stones loose. So about an hour after I ran to first base, I started to have this pain in my lower back. And I mean, listen, my pain tolerance has always been pretty high. And I literally I was driving home to grab something and we got done with that game and I was driving home to grab something. And the whole way there, it progressively got worse. So I'm in my truck. And by the time I get to my house, I'm literally like curled over, gripping onto the steering wheel. Like, what in the heck is happening? And I have a buddy on the phone who like knows me very well and is like, I'm going to stay with you, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. I had to crawl through the gravel to get to my back porch. And I called my wife and was like, look, I don't know what's going on, but you got to come get me. Well, I had drove. So she had to find somebody to bring her up. So she comes up, we go to the emergency room. Well, here I have a 6 millimeter kidney stone in my right side and a 4 millimeter in my left.
Oh my gosh.
So they gave me some pain meds and released me. And then I have an appointment with my urologist the next week. I go in, he put stents in. Dude, I had never had surgery except for the weight loss surgery in my life. So here I am in a matter of like a year, boom, I'm back in the I'm like, like what the heck's going on? So I had those stents in. I got those stents in it was I think the next week. And then I had those until December. So every time I peed, I was in excruciating pain from August till December. And then go figure, I don't know, early September. I'm coaching football. I was a part of a youth organization back in PA. I'm coaching football, and I'm active, man. Like, if I'm going to demonstrate it, I'm going to demonstrate it. So I'm in and out of a 3-point stance. And my right hip in early September started to give me a little bit of issue. In 2 weeks, I couldn't walk.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, like literally. And here's part of it. I couldn't take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because of my stomach. That's part of the surgery. And I'm not a pain med guy anyway. So like there was nothing I could really do to like reduce any inflammation. And it happened like boom overnight. And I couldn't drive. Like it was my right leg. I couldn't like extend literally, like I couldn't bend at my hip at all. And if I did, it would like shock me. We laugh about it. My wife and I laugh about it now. There would be times I'd be walking and it would just jolt me and I'd fall over and hit the ground.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure probably the first time that happened, you were probably sitting on the floor looking around like, and people are like, "What? Are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah, like this is too much information, but like for those months, I had to poop standing up. Like it was brutal, dude. Like it was so bad. So,
and this is all after. And sorry. This is all after having the surgery. You drop a bunch of weight.
This is like 9 months.
All right, I'm moving again. Like this is awesome. Yeah. And now this is happening.
But here's the thing, the beauty in all of this, because it was terrible. But the beauty in all of this is, I was experiencing this at 270 pounds, not 550.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So I became keenly aware of the decision I made and how important that decision was. So like there was validation, even in the pain, man. And it was terrible. Then I got told from an ortho, I went and saw this orthopedic, and he was like, "Hey man, you have a cam hip in your right hip. You need a new hip." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not getting a new hip. I'm 41 years old."
Yeah, you're 41.
I'm not doing it. That led to me to like kind of going around, and we went to the Philadelphia Eagles training center and saw an ortho. He wrote me the script for a steroid shot, so I asked for cortisone. Okay. So we did that, and then I went to another ortho in town, different medical group, and he was like, "Look, I got 2 questions for you. First question is, if I give you a recommendation, will you stick with me and stop seeing all these orthos?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, if it's practical, yeah."
Yeah.
He goes, "Second question is," and I think he was probing me here to make sure I wasn't chasing meds. He said, "Will you do physical therapy today if I can get your insurance to sign off on it?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I saw him, went into physical therapy, and I learned about muscle guarding and physical therapy. I cannot explain that from a medical standpoint, but like it's real. And I remember like my ortho or my PT was like, "Take it easy, don't go crazy. Like we're gonna get through this." And in my head, I'm like, muscle guarding. He told me I could beat that. And I remember my wife's like, "Dave, he told you to take it easy." And I'm like, "Yeah, again, gritty Dave."
This is where that grittiness shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next day, literally the next day, I woke up in the morning, I got dressed, I walked out to my truck, I sat in my truck, and I literally leaned back in my seat and pulled myself up through that pain threshold and just held myself there like 20 times. And I was like, all right. And I drove to Dunkin' Donuts and got a coffee and like a wake-up wrap. And then I came home. And then I walked in and I said, "Hey, I need some help." And at first my wife's like, "Whatever." I said, "I'm going to sit on the couch. You're going to grab my hands and I'm going to stand up and down," which is pushing myself through that pain threshold. I did it like 20 times. Then I went upstairs, sat on the toilet with my jeans on, and I sat down 20 times on the toilet. And then I went in the bedroom and I grabbed my leg and brought it up to my knee and put my socks on 20 times. And I was like, I can live with this pain. Like this hurts and this sucks. But if this is what it is, I can live through this pain the rest of my life. I'll be okay. I don't need a hip. Well, then I just kept going to PT. And what I kind of figured, I know enough, right? So like, I didn't do any fitness. Like I wasn't prioritizing protein. I wasn't lifting. Yeah. The majority of my weight loss was muscle loss. And so those are major groups that need to be surrounded and supported. Well, I didn't have any of that. So I kind of had the view in my own head of like, I wonder if I just lost so much muscle that like these joints aren't supported. And so I think literally that's what happened. So like I started to build myself back through physical therapy to the point that I could drive and walk and do what I needed to do. And then I think it was like end of December, that year after Christmas, my wife came in, Bree came in and was like, hey, one of the moms from the football organization is joining. There's this local gym in town called Fame. And they do these class. They do a really good job with kids, and they do some adult stuff too, and functional fitness stuff. And so Bree had kind of been at that point on her own little bit of a weight loss journey that started probably 6 months after my surgery. She had probably lost 65, 70 pounds and was like, hey, I want to do this class. Would you be open to it? I'm like, yeah, do it. Absolutely. Well, I'm watching her come in like 3 days a week, sweating her tail off, and my big tail sitting on the couch, you know what I mean? Just wasting away. And I'm like, I got to do something. And so what led me to CrossFit was two things. First thing was the CrossFit gym was in Plains, so it was in a different town, and I didn't have to be around the kids I coach and the parents and any of that, right? I knew it was somewhat isolated. And I knew through the guy's wife, the guy that owned that gym, and so that there was a connection there. And I make this comment, and the article talks about this, but I managed fighters for a short duration in a past life, and I had some guys that were like very involved in CrossFit, was kind of their primary source of strength and conditioning, and they were all yoked, man. So I was like, but the barbell side of it, just from my football years, I really missed. Now, mind you, I did not know anything about like snatching and clean and jerking or any of this stuff. Like, so in my brain, it's like squats, deadlifts, bench press, like, heck yeah, tire
power
flips.
moves, right? Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, all right, you know. So I got a hold of Brennan. I went down and saw him. Did like a little, you know, every gym has their little foundation or onboarding. I did that with him. And then that's Saturday morning, I went to my first class, scared to death.
I was curious how that first one was, like just even walking in the door.
Yo, scared to death. Was it Hankins? John Harkins. Yeah.
What was that fear? What do you think the fear was? If you had to kind of pin, I mean, I'm sure, like, I think it's an understandable feeling, but I'm curious what the fear was for you. Was it
first
fear
off,
of not being able to do stuff? Like, yeah.
So let me paint this picture. So this gym is a 24,000 square foot facility.
Oh,
okay.
My goodness.
Yeah. So it's not just your standard like CrossFit box. This place was giant. That's one. I walk in and it's like, what the hell? Number two, there's a bunch of people standing around a whiteboard. And I paid mention to this earlier. Like, dude, some of these people look like superheroes. Yeah. Like my buddy Rick, who is a close friend of mine now. Rick looks like somebody wrote about him in a comic book. You know what I mean? Like he does. If you see photos, like, dude, the dude's jacked. And I'm like feeble, flappy skin, fat, not the athlete that I ever was. You know, it was just kind of weird. Yeah, John Harkins, who actually was my wife's boss back when she worked restaurants. So I didn't know that. He was like, hey, man, you want to be my partner? And I'm like, yep. Like, I just really quickly, like, all right, dude, I got a partner.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so we did this partner WOD together. I don't remember what it was, but that kind of broke the ice. And then Monday morning, I started to go to 6 a.m. class. And when I think about this, I may even get a little choked up because the 6 a.m. class at NEPA CrossFit was like solid. And I'll never forget this. One of my first workouts was bench press.
Okay.
Now, mind you, as CrossFitters, we don't bench press very much. That actually has ended up with injuring my shoulder, but that's another story. I think at my most, I benched 225 close to 30 times. Like when I was 17,
like 18
football, strong kid. Yeah.
Football test.
So like, I remember that day bench pressing, putting 225 on the bar, and I about broke my neck and choked myself out.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to go down to 185, and I barely could do 185. And there's a guy in that class. I got to be careful because I don't want to cry. There's a guy in that class named Tom Balesta, who is still a great friend of mine today. And I was like disheveled, dude. I remember like the pride, the ego, like I can't even do 185 barely. I remember him going like, Dave, look at how far you've come. Like you're focused on what's in front of you, but like you were 600 pounds, man. Like that encouragement, that was like the first, like, okay, this is different. This isn't a conventional gym. I'm surrounded by absolute, dude, I think about the people in that 6 a.m. class, man, Joe, Bones, like they were maniacs. Like Rob Falls. I miss out like, being in Louisiana, being away from there. Like I miss those dudes deeply. They pushed like the drive that dude, they were psychos, but like we were bonded. There was a work ethic that was there. There was a challenge and accountability. I can still to this day, like if I'm working through a shoulder rehab, but like it's there. Like if I do less weight than I know I should, it's Rob Falls in my head going, what do you do? What are you doing? You know, like I'll never, that place will always like mean the world because those people were nuts and they all worked very hard and they pushed us. And so my wife came in April, she got accepted. It was like right away, like she's gritty. So like, that's probably why I fell in love with her. Like she's just gritty. So like we were both now these gritty, goofy people that are a part of this community, right? And I always tell her, like, we make it very easy for affiliate owners because we work really hard. We don't bring any drama. We just get along with people. And like, we just show up and like encourage people, right? Like I was like, honestly, there's gym members that affiliate owners like hate to see, but when as we've stepped into gyms, they're like, yeah, we need you a part of this. You know what I mean? Which has been cool. So like we really became a part of that. And then through that time, you start to, so like I'll give you a funny story. Like one of my first Saturday workouts, I'm watching this other group of folks in the corner. And this is Rick. There's a guy named Mike Hurley, Biz. And I'm like, they need to have their names said because they're such instrumental parts of our lives. But I'm watching them like handstand walk and do this crazy stuff. And I Phil Semenza, whose sister is Paige Semenza.
Okay,
so I'm like,
as soon as you said the last name, I'm like, oh, wait a second.
yeah. So I'm like watching these dudes work out and I'm like, I want to train with them. 6 months later on Sundays, that was our group, right? We were a part of that group. Like very quickly, I never followed CrossFit like training methodology. I never went like 3-in-1. From day one, I was 6 or 7 days a week. I didn't stop. Like there was never like literally I figured out the more consistent I was, the less sore I was. So when I would try to do 3-1, I would be like deadly sore. If I just showed up, I was better. So that's kind of what
got
drove
some movement in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like in our gym, like it was cool. I could come in at 2 a.m. if I wanted to and go run. And I could, the door was open. So that was kind of a neat part of it. And so we kind of transitioned very quickly to where we were like 6 or 7 day athletes. Like we had a Sunday morning group that we went and met. They were all kind of older. Rick's not 40 yet, but like probably I'd say 35 to 50. I think Gary Price, Maniac, was probably like 50, 52, that age. And we would just go in and do a Rick WOD. The joke is that it was a flush WOD, but it was always terrible. We would go in and just murder ourselves and then sit around and drink energy drinks and talk and laugh and then go home, right? And so there's
always that one person in the group that it's like, all right, we're doing one of his workouts. Like, oh boy, this is gonna be
Rick.
Interesting real fast.
Yeah. No. To this day, dude, if I'm like, I need a workout and I text him, I know that what he's sending me back is like, I'm like, bro,
this is gonna hurt a little bit. Like this is gonna hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Thinking back to, so you mentioned, that experience of that first day, and being a part of that, the community aspect. And there was a piece you mentioned, a little bit earlier about how a lot of the cycles, whether the weight loss cycles and different things you had gone through, you had tried to kind of grit through on your own. And it sounds like this was really one of the first times. I mean, you went through 75 hard with your wife, which was obviously starting to, incorporate someone else in there. But it sounds like that was one of the first times that you were really exposed to a community aspect of fitness. And I know, from a CrossFit perspective, we talk a ton about the community. And sometimes I think it can kind of get thrown around as I don't want to call it like a cheesy term, but there's some reality to it. And I think the specifics of a story like yours, kind of show what that really means to people. I mean, did that hit you in that moment of like, oh, wow, this is what it feels like to be around other people. Like, I don't have to go through this by myself. Like you have to do the work, but I can be with people and I can have a support to actually work through it.
Yeah. So like, listen, fitness communities, whether it's jiu-jitsu, CrossFit, they all get this like call. Like, right. And I've watched some of your podcasts this week. Like, it kind of comes up consistently. We laugh at it. But look, man, it's no different in real life. Like when you suffer with people and you put work in with people, there's a camaraderie and a loyalty and an accountability that gets, we're not meant to be alone. My faith tells me that we're not created to do life alone. And so it gives you people that you suffer with. Now, it's not necessarily emotional suffering, although I would argue, heavy DT could be. It's not necessarily like, you're experiencing life, although some of that stuff happens as you get to know folks. But for that hour, like, you are burying yourself alongside others. And I think the first thing that happens is you develop a respect level for everybody that does it. No different than jiu-jitsu, right? When you get on a jiu-jitsu mat and you're trying to choke each other out, like, there's a respect level to just show up and be there. So I think that happens first. And then the second thing that happens is you begin to find people with similar mentality to you, right? Because listen, the beautiful thing about CrossFit is we're not all maniacs. Not everybody is. Like, a lot of people just come in and move, and then they kind of have their folks. And then are the maniacs that are like, nope, I'm going to go puke in the trash can. And they kind of have their folks, right? And so you kind of find your group of people intertwined throughout the community that you can rely on and talk to and lean on. And so, yeah, I think for me, another thing that happened during that time is my appetite came back. Like, very quickly, putting in that level of work, I needed to eat. Now, it's weird to say this. I think back to this now. There was an unhealthy aspect of that for me, and she talks about it. That didn't really manifest for me until we moved to Louisiana. Did I really understand it? But I was able to kind of manage it as well when I was in PA. And when I got to Louisiana, I lost some of the ability to manage it. But we'd go through these strength cycles.
I know we had talked about, before that you had had some time in Louisiana. There was the exposure to, well, I mean, the food culturally that's there, right? I'm sure that played into. Were there other factors you think that played into that transition when you moved?
Yeah, a couple. So I was gaining weight and losing weight very consistently, controlled when I was in PA. I would, I was living about 255. I would get up to 275 during a strength cycle. And then as we deloaded off that strength cycle, I would come back down to 255. And because of my stomach size, I could do that rapidly. So like, where most people 20-pound weight gain was like, oh my gosh, literally, man, like 3-4 weeks, I could take that weight off. So it wasn't like, it just was no big deal. When I moved to Louisiana, it was multifold. So I took a different position. At 22, I had left the company I was with and then started a company that didn't work. So there's that whole transition too. And then I went back to my old company in a different role in Louisiana. There's really three, I think, elements to it. The first thing is my job changed significantly. So I'm a senior ops manager over a pretty large district. I don't move a ton. Like, I'm not doing the work anymore, right? I have, 51 people that report up through me. And so there's a lot of desk time. The job that I was doing before this, I was probably 15, 20,000 steps a day. So just we'll call it like, static level of movement throughout the day changed like remarkably. Never took that into consideration. Number two, the CrossFit gym that we joined when we got here, albeit, pretty positive experience, I think was geared a little bit differently, definitely differently than what we were used to. So not right, wrong, or indifferent, just different.
Right.
So they were a little bit more health focused, a little bit older clientele. Some of the best coaching I still have ever received to this day, but like just different community, very different than where we had come from. And so I don't feel like I was like, the intensity of the work wasn't the same as where we had come from. So reduced intensity. Yeah. And then the third thing, dude, like I like crackling and king cake, and I can get it anywhere. I mean, anywhere you go. Like, the food is insane. It's so good. And I travel like all over the eastern part of the state. So I'm down near the Gulf, which is like great seafood. A lot of times that's fried. And then, I'm in the middle part of the state, which is rice and gravy and crackling and, boudin, and like, it's good. And I like food. So like I'm eating. So when I moved here, I was probably 260. Well, by December, when I got injured, I was like 295. Now, listen, 20 pounds of that was intentional because we were doing some strength cycling stuff at our gym and I wanted to get strong. And because I'm a dude, I don't want like slow progressive overload. I wanted like fast.
I'm going to do it fast. I'm going to do it quick. Yeah, it's a short strength cycle. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah, correct. And listen, it worked. Like I got very strong, very fast. But in December 2nd of last year, this is so stupid. Like I can't even believe I'm about to say this out loud. It's ego. It's so all ego. We were doing a press day. So we did strict press, push press, bench press. And on the bench press, I made a 30-pound jump from 245 to 275. And
that's a bold jump.
Yeah, and I could listen, the weight wasn't all that heavy. It wasn't an issue of like, did I have the strength to do it? I just ripped off like quite a bit of reps at 245 light. It was easy. I had just done 225 push press for I think 3. Like I was plenty strong enough. But my shoulder fatigue, and I had a former like partial rotator cuff tear in my right shoulder. I just think volume over time. I pushed on that rep and I felt it. Like I felt it go. It just felt like Velcro tearing. It didn't hurt. I was like, oh man, something's not right.
Like,
so we re-racked. Yeah, we re-racked the weight. And I knew pretty quickly there was something wrong. But because it was December and the way insurance premiums work, I didn't want to go to the doctor until January because I didn't want to repay my deductible twice.
So I just okay.
Yeah, I just kept going. I just thugged it out. Like I just kept going. I couldn't really do weight. Like I was doing like empty barbell thrusters just to get through stuff. But I was in immense pain. And I knew, I don't know, probably 2 weeks in, I told my wife, like, I think like this is going to be severe. Weird thing happened. December 21st of last year, our gym that we were going to closed and we had to come to a new gym, which is where I'm at right now, CrossFit Zachary. And so I transitioned to this gym while I was injured. And so I just kind of continued to do modified scaled stuff. And, you begin to learn like how you can scale and how you can modify. So like the coaches here have been great about that. And then I went and had an MRI early January once my deductible reset. And I went into the ortho and he was like, hey man, I know you had a former injury here. Now you have a full injury. Your rotator cuff is fully tore and your bicep is fully tore as well.
Ooh.
And so the weirdest thing about that is like, I had no fear of surgery. But I was
you had two major surgeries up until before that one, right? So yeah.
But I was 297, and my output was fixing to change dramatically.
Okay.
And when I got home, my wife kind of knew, like, you're not afraid of surgery, you're not afraid of the pain, you're afraid of gaining the weight. And I'm like, yeah, like I haven't had control of it since we moved to Louisiana. And she was kind of going through her own thing where she had put on some weight too. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't trust myself. Like, I'm not heading down the direction of like, I'm not headed down the right direction. And my output is literally getting ready to get cut by 75%.
And so, it's interesting. It was one of the things I kind of made note of, right? As reading through your story, there are these big inflection points, right? Whether it's starting 75 hard, deciding to go get the surgery, and then what we're going to, I'm sure where we're going next. And it seemed like this next step happened a lot earlier in the kind of weight gain slide than the other times. And I was so curious, like, what was it? And it sounds like that was it, right? I mean, how did that feel when your wife said that to you, right? In terms of like, you're not afraid of the surgery. You're not afraid of it. You're afraid of the weight gain. I mean, maybe, I don't know if it was worded exactly that way, but when she said that, were you like, yeah, you're right? Or was there a party that was like, how did you react when you heard that?
No. Yeah. 100%. Like I was, yeah, you're right. Like that's exactly it. And listen, at this point I had, I guess we didn't get there, but I had connected the dots between my mental health. And so like, I knew the work I had put in, I knew the progress that had been made. I knew where I was at and the peace that I had lived. And I was not going back to that chaos. Like I refused. Like there was like this side of me that's like, like you got to figure this out. And so listen, the one thing there's 1,000 different views on addiction. I tend to be a guy, I don't necessarily believe once an addict, always an addict, but I do believe that when you're predispositioned to some of that stuff, just through nurture and trauma, that you're going to struggle with those things. I think that there's a resiliency in carrying around some of that struggle that is important. And there's a humility that comes from that I'm actually pretty thankful for at my age. But I started to do some research even then. And that's what led me to the GLP-1, which I know from a CrossFit conversation gets super shady. But I'd done enough research on tirzepatide to know the effects and kind of knew that it was a little bit safer than the semaglutide side. But what I was seeking was the mental clarity. And everybody that I had talked about that had taken it were like, dude, I don't have those cravings. Like, I'm not dealing with that food noise. And so I just told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to see if my doctor will prescribe me this as kind of a buffer as I rehab through surgery.
Okay, so the timing of those two things was kind of linked together a little bit, right? Like
intentionally.
Okay. That makes sense.
Intentionally. Like, once I prepped for surgery and I knew it was coming, I just made the decision to go on a GLP-1 to kind of, get through it. And I know it's long-term. And it's actually, if you look into the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, the surgery I had, there's a lot of patients that 3-4 years in end up on a GLP-1 as kind of a maintenance tool. So it's pretty common in like the weight loss community. So I just was like, all right, I think I'm going to do this. Well, I did get those effects very quick. Like, it helped dramatically. The food noise gone, like the ability to just kind of can't eat a lot, like it limited, it slows down your digestion process. And so like it was literally exactly what I needed at that time. And so go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off there, just because, the term food noise, and I've heard that same effect from, I used to do I still do a little bit of nutrition coaching. I had a client before that had went through a similar thing, started on a GLP-1 right before we started working together. And that was the biggest thing that she noticed was a reduction in food noise. Can you put into words what that food noise felt like before that GLP-1?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's any different than heroin noise or alcohol noise, or, I just think like you have a voracious craving for whatever you can get your hands on. Like, and listen, I don't know if it's uncontrollable to all people, but for me in my history, like it's uncontrollable. Like there just comes a point where like, I don't have power over it. I don't know, man. Like, I'm a pretty mentally strong dude, and I always have been. I think I've shown resiliency throughout my life, but like for whatever reason, that one thing, that demon, that is what I call it, because it's sure to hell what it feels like. Like, I've never been able to say no. I can say no for a while, but there comes a point where I'm like, yeah, and then I find myself 40 pounds heavier. It's just a voracious anxiety that doesn't go away until it gets what it wants.
What was that like once it went away? Was it like, I don't know if relief is a way to put it. How would you describe it once? Yeah,
I think relief is a good word. It's just like, okay, I can work now. I can do what I need to do. I can focus on rehab and getting healthy, right? Like, that gave me the freedom to like, all right, man, like I can, and I did. I literally, so I was real close to like stopping my membership here. Wow. The community side of CrossFit really is like, nah, man, I need these folks, right? As a matter of fact, they laugh at me. There's a video that came out on social media, I don't know, it's a few months ago, and a dude walks in a CrossFit gym with the sling on. And he's like doing GHDs, and his coach is like, "Hey man, you're wearing a sling," and he's like, "Yeah, I got I just had shoulder surgery." And he's like when? And he's like, "Well, today." The day I had surgery was 25.1, and I was in the gym that night. Like, I walked in with my sling on to see everybody compete, to be a part of the community, to like literally 12 hours after I had surgery.
That's amazing. I can't imagine the level of, because the open in any gym that you go into, right? If it's Friday night lights, things are going, energy's high, and that's pretty standard. I can't imagine then when you walk in with a sling, like fresh off of surgery, to cheer people on, what that place felt like.
They all think I'm crazy. They all think I'm nuts. Our affiliate owner has, I don't know what the word is. Like, he calls me hard-headed in Spanish. I don't know what the word is, but like, look, man, I wasn't missing. Right. I was high on pain meds. I was cool. My nerve block still hadn't worn off. So my whole arm was numb. I wasn't uncomfortable. I wanted to watch my wife get after it. Like, she was being judged. She signed up. I wanted to see the other community members. I had terrible FOMO. Like, I was like, damn, man, I wish I could do this. But so listen, 25.3, I did. So
really?
So I went to 25.1 in a sling, 25.2 in a sling, 25.3. When that workout was released, which of course we all watch it, right? We're watching from our
wall walks and snatches.
So there was things I couldn't, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I did everything with a dumbbell or dumbbell or kettlebell, one armed. So like I was in the back corner on 20. You could see me in the videos for our gym. Like I'm in the back corner in a sling, and I just modified that workout myself. And I sent it to our affiliate owner and was like, "Hey man, can I do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, looks like it to me." So I did, and I just tied my sling super tight so my arm wouldn't move. And 2 weeks after surgery, I did 25.3.
Dude, that's a beautiful story, and it ties in the community aspect. It ties in the scalability of CrossFit, right? The aspect from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is awesome, because you would have had, if you hadn't shown up, right, and just been like, you know what, I'll get back into it next week. Nobody would have thought twice about it. Yeah, he's 2 weeks off of surgery, and there's 25 wall walks and power snatches in this. But that's a testament to, one, your grit, which I know we've kind of kept as a through line throughout this, right? To show up and still do that. I mean, that's one of those where it's like, oh, anybody, if you're willing to walk in the door, right? Anybody can do this stuff. That's the old line from CrossFit, right? It's for anybody, but it's not for everybody. But if you're willing to walk in the door, regardless of your situation in that moment, we've got a way for you to get some fitness in.
Yeah, dude, listen, and I killed myself with that sling on. So like I did not miss. I still mainstayed like 6-7 days a week the whole time.
Yeah.
Like we have a coach here, Cherie, and she's the best. Matter of fact, she judges all over. I think the adaptive games. Like she's incredible. Wow. I used to hate her class because I knew that she was going to have some wicked, goofy thing that I was about to kill myself doing. Like she had me doing some ab stuff, one arm, that I was like, what are you doing?
Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah. So like I got that level of, and listen, man, a lot of times it was just front rack kettlebell, front squats, or you know what I mean? Push press, like kettlebell push press, just single arm stuff, single arm snatches. Yeah. And I had a really good physical therapist, Will Forret, that I met through CrossFit. So I went to him because I knew he knew where I came from. So I just kept going. 3 days a week, physical therapy, never missed the gym. And then a lot of C2 bike, man. I did a lot of biker. Mm-hmm. And I would do like really long cardio pieces on that bike. Like just to kind of blow my brain out.
What was it during that time of, right after surgery, right? You're still coming in with the sling on 6-7 days a week. For you mentally, what was it that kept you coming back through that time?
The people. I think just like getting a chance that hour. Listen, it's going to sound, and if people don't know me, like I'm a talker and I think I communicate pretty well, but I'm an only child. And so like there's an introvert side of me. And so in my role at work, like I'm front and center, I'm talking to folks all the time. At the CrossFit gym, I can just go escape for an hour. Right. And be around people. We're equals. We're doing the same thing. We're just suffering through it for an hour. And I need that. And so it was those people, that encouragement, just showing up. I had to have it. I had to have that interaction every day. And then there's progress. Right. And then another thing that's happening during this time is I'm on this GLP-1. So I'm dropping weight. So like, I think my first checkup, I went from 297. And I think I was 300 because I had clothes on. So 300 pounds to like 271. Wow. And then pretty soon I'm 260s and then 250s and 240s, right? So like that was 227 today on the scale. So I'm taking that weight off, which for me was like a giant relief, because the one anxiety that I had as I rehab back was that weight gain, and I was dropping it rapidly, still putting the work in, still grinding, still getting, using that grit, but like doing what I needed to do. And then I got my sling off after 12 weeks, but then I'm still like, or 6 weeks. Sorry. I got my sling off after 6 weeks, but I'm still very limited. Like at that point, my range of motion was probably say almost 100%, but I had no strength in my right arm. Like, I'm literally doing push press, like 50 pounds left arm, 10 pounds right arm, which is super weird. Dumbbell bench, same way. But I got to slowly come back. And I remember the first day I did a PVC pass through, I was like, oh crap, man, my shoulder, it's coming back. You know what I mean?
You're like, all right, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's a video on my social media. I think you liked it on my Instagram, where I'm doing snatches.
Yeah. And I think saw that. Like, I think came across it yesterday. Yeah. And I love that message. Yeah.
That's 6 weeks after I got my sling off.
Here, I'm going to, let me pull it up because I really like the cat or the write up that you had on it was really cool, and I just want to read it because I think it encapsulates exactly what you're just talking about.
And that was a Rick
Let's see.
wad, by the way. That was a wad that I reached out to my buddy Rick and was like, "Hey, man, can you send me something on a Sunday?" That was one of his, and
Yeah.
like it was snatches and I think toes to bar. So I did candlesticks, and it was terrible. It sucked, but like
Perfect Rick wad, right? Exactly what you'd expect.
yeah,
Exactly what he cooked up. Look,
and
I've got it. It was 18 weeks out from surgery to repair a fully torn rotator cuff and fully torn bicep. Show up, do your PT, but don't stop showing up.
yeah, man.
And
Like
that last phrase, that last comment, man, that hits, right? That hits home for a lot of people. It's
yeah,
like there's any number of reasons to not show up, but
I think I
there's
often tell
so many
people.
reasons to keep showing up.
Well, I think what I tell people this often, and I think this resonates with anybody that's CrossFit. I battle with myself daily to show up, but I've never regretted it. There's not one time that I've ever walked out of this gym and been like, damn, man, I shouldn't have done that. Right. I will fight myself tooth and like my wife and I did this. We had to like raw dog a run today because had to get it in before our workout. And listen, I hate running. It sucks. Like I'm doing some running programming now, preparing for a couple 5Ks coming up. And,
Nice.
you know, man, like we didn't want to do it. Like we're coming back. I'm like, how are we going to fit this in? How are we going to do this? We know we have this short window of time. We literally got home, changed, walked outside, and just took off. No warm up, just went and ran. But when I got back from that run, I wasn't like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I was like, oh, yeah, I feel great, right? So there's never been a point throughout these almost 3 years that I've ever left the gym and regretted going. I'm okay with the toil ahead of time. Like I can work through that. And I think we all get there, right? Like I can come up, I want to go to bed. There's thousand reasons, but I've never regretted going, never once.
That's beautiful. I feel the same way. I want to read one more quote from the article. Just 'cause I want to get some perspective from you on it. Here we go. It's towards the end of the article, and it's a section where you're talking about, not judging yourself against your appearances. And the quote says, when I walked into my first gym, everyone looked like superheroes. I felt like I didn't belong. But the truth is, we were all insecure, all on our own paths. If I had listened to that initial judgment, I would have missed out on the pure privilege of being impacted by this community. And I think we've hit on some of those themes, especially like you've talked about it a couple times, right? How everyone in the gym, especially that first day, looks like you're like, these people look like they're drawn out of freaking comic books, right? What the heck?
Yeah.
But at what point did that thought or that second piece, right? We're all insecure. We're all on our own paths. When did that become real for you that you realized that was the case? Was it through? Did you have a realization? Did it come through talking to other people, hearing their stories, and you're like, oh my goodness, everybody's got something? Like what was that realization?
Like? Yeah. Getting to know people. Yeah, getting to understand like their story and their goals. Look, there's some people out there that look incredibly fit, and like you look at their bodies and you're like, goodness gracious. And then you get to know them and they're like, oh, I used to be this much weight, or I struggled with this, and you're like, wait, whoa, we're not so dissimilar, right? There's a commonality amongst humans. And I think, look, man, I think it's realistic real life, when you talk with people, we have way more in common than we have apart. I just think that's the truth. And so as I got to know these people, like, Rick, the guy I talked about that looks like he's from a comic book, Rick was a tall, skinny dude who couldn't gain weight for the majority of his life. And so there was insecurity on the back end of that, where like he couldn't gain weight and he couldn't get muscular, and he played basketball, and, like he was always pretty fit, but he was a, tall, 6'2", skinny dude. That's relevant. My buddy Matt is a little short dude. Matt's like, I don't know, 5'5", and like, it's like everybody has that story. Sam Pugh, I referenced earlier. I know if you go to her social media, like there's a lot of conversation on her social media about her own struggles. So like, even though we look at these people and are like, man, like, wow, they're dealing with the same demons in their own way, right? And that all that is a piece to kind of bring us on the same page, intertwined, right? Our stories our stories, like even my story, there's people that look at it and are like, holy crap, man. But the reality is it's more intertwined with everybody else than it is separate. Right? There's elements of what I've gone through, like my path. When I step inside this CrossFit gym, and I know the stories of a lot of people, even in our current community, which is incredible. There's far more similarities. They look different, right? They're different. We have a girl that competed. That's one of our coaches, Lee, that competed a couple of weeks ago with my wife at Beach Brawl in Pensacola. And like, incredible story. Resilient, man, like grinder. It's crazy, like to see what I know she went through and what she shared with me to who she is now as a person. Like, Coach Cherie that we talked about, our affiliate owner Fabian, like, man, dude, we're far more alike than we're not, right? We're far more similar than we're not. And I think if you had to do a survey across like every affiliate in the United States, my story is not so dissimilar. The visual element of it might be, right? That's fair. I was a big, giant, 7X shirt dude, and now I'm not. But the mental element of it, the emotional growth, the resiliency that it takes to be doing this for any length of time. One of the things I wrote in one of my food addiction to CrossFit boxes was, when you meet people that have been doing this for 10 years, lean into them, because it takes a different type of human to train like this for so long.
Yeah.
It just does. Like they're not normal. And so
what was there? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish that.
No, go ahead.
So piggybacking on that lesson, because is there a person or a group? And I mean, I'm sure probably that group of guys that you're training with from that gym in PA probably come to mind. Who's the person for you that comes to mind when you think about that, right? Someone training for 10 years, lean into them. And like, what have you learned from someone that comes to mind?
So Rob Fall. No, it's probably Rob. Yeah. Like, okay. Rick definitely has trained a long time. Rob's been, I think I don't know all those guys I think started training early on, like in the early formation of NEPA CrossFit. So like, I think Mike Hurley, Rick was involved somewhat early. Rob was just super unique, man. Rob never complains, there's never a bitch. And he will make every workout 10 times harder than it's supposed to be. Like, I'll give you an example, man. Our 7 a.m. Saturday coach, Sam's like, I don't know how tall she is. If she hears this and I make her shorter than she really is, she'll get mad. But I think she's like 5'2", 5'3". Gymnast, like, she would program that class for us. And I would see her when I walk in the gym. I used to call her Beelzebub, because like she looks like this sweet little like thing, and she programs the hardest workouts that you could possibly do on Saturdays. It used to piss me off.
It always happens like that, right? You're like, how are you coming up with that? Where's that coming from right now?
Yeah,
it's like you look so sweet on the outside, and then you come up with this. What in the world?
And she would just walk around class and be giggling at our suffering. It was funny. So Rob, though, would like look at her workout. So I'll give you an example. Sam might program like in the middle of a workout 20 burpee box jump overs, right? Okay. Rob Falls would go. And really so I'm going to say this, I'm going to out him here. Hopefully he does hear this. It really was less about making it hard and more about the fact that he didn't want to do the movement for real. So he would just be like, we're not doing that, Dave. I'm like, all right, what are we doing, Rob? And he'd be like, we're going to do burpee D-ball over box get overs.
Oh, gosh.
So I have a 150-pound D-ball that I have to burpee, pick up, roll over the box, jump over the... Like, I couldn't say no. I just was like, all right. Or it might be like, instead of farmer carry, Rob wants to do yoke carries, right? So we're going to put 400 pounds on the yoke, and we're going to do that instead. And like, I'm a grunt work guy because I ain't got to think, and so I'm never going to say no to grunt work. But like, he's the guy, man. Like, this dude's been through 2 shoulder surgeries, still shows up, still doing bar muscle ups. Like, he's just he's a very smart dude. He's an engineer by trade. And there's some grit there, man. And he was the guy that if I was doing less weight would literally walk by my barbell and be like, "You're only doing 95? Why are you doing 95?" And
It's with that tone where you're like, man, come on, man.
Yeah, leave me alone, dude. Yeah, or he was the guy that was like, "Hey, class is over. We're doing Sally Up, right? We're going to do Sally Up, aren't we? Aren't we going to do, hey, Brennan, aren't we going to do Sally Up?" And then we're like, nobody can say no. So there's 15 of us standing around doing, whatever, Sally Up, Sally Down, and squats. So like, it was him, man. Like he's the guy that I think like brought that out and kind of that beacon in some ways of hard work. And I'm super appreciative. Yeah. Like I got to go home in April. We all got to jump into 6 a.m. again, which was cool.
Oh, that was probably so much fun to get the band back together, and you're like, all right, just like old times, time to go. Here we go.
Yeah, for sure.
No, look, Dave, I know we've been on here for a good amount of time, so I'm super appreciative of all the time you've given. I've got one more question for you. But before that one, I just want to express my appreciation for you coming on, being this open about your story, obviously being as open as you were with the story and the way it was written in the article, and now adding context and detail here and some other pieces of the story too. I'm super, super grateful and appreciative for you to come on and you had just mentioned this, right? That maybe your transformation from a visual perspective might be, I'll use the word extreme, right? But the journey that you went on is similar to what a lot of people maybe have gone through. Not in the details, but just in the hurdles and battling to find that consistency and continuing to show up and working through challenges. That is so common. And I'm super grateful for you to share what that looked like for you and how you still continue to show up. So that on the front end. Now, my last question for you, I kind of like to do this little bit of a look back type of question, right? If you picture that I wave a magic wand and I stick you in a time machine, right? And let's say, you get to talk to, let's say, the version of you that stepped on that scale at that heliport and saw, 400 on the scale for the first time, right? And that version of you had that moment. Everybody's around seeing it. You're just like, oh, shoot, like what in the world is going on, right? Or whatever was kind of going through your mind for the rest of that day. You get to sit down with that version of you, and he's like, hey, I heard of this thing called CrossFit. It seems kind of weird, seems kind of crazy. The only people I know that have done it are MMA fighters, and they're a little loose too, right? Well, what should I do? What do you think I should do about it? Should I try it? And now you, with all the experience that you've had, the challenges that you've gone through from that moment up until now, you get a few minutes to sit down with that version of yourself and give him some advice about whether to do CrossFit or not. What would you say to him?
Yeah, listen, the obvious answer is go do it. Look, I'll say this. I understand why a lot of people don't do it. And I understand why a lot of fit people don't do it. I get that. And while I do subscribe to that comment you made earlier, that it is for everybody and everybody can do it. I think everybody. So I want to be careful how I say this, or like correct in the way I say this. Or I don't think that everybody has the mental. I think it scratches an itch that everybody doesn't have. Is what I would say. Think that the intensity of what we do caters to a certain individual. It's a very unique training style, and it requires a different level of mental, right, and physical work. And I think that like there's a lot of people that would look at it and just be like, while it would benefit them health, don't get me wrong, like the health benefits are incredible. It's definitely not why I'm here. I figured that out a long time ago. I'm here for the mental side of it. The physical is just kind of math to me. But I don't think everybody, like for me, it was life-changing. For me, it's been like a giant beacon. The people, the work, the conversations, the coaching, the attention to detail, like the chaos that it puts in your head in the middle of a workout. I've needed that, and it's provided a a very like just much needed element to my life that I didn't have. I don't know if everybody needs that level, right? I would always tell everybody to try it, because I think you can talk a lot of crap about something, but if you've never been a part of the community, and I see a lot of social media people that say a lot of negative things about the programming aspect, blah, 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 the science of it, if you will, which tells me that they've never dove deep into the people, because it's the people that grab you. It's those relationships. It's that suffering with others. I don't know. I have a lot of friends that are fit and do a lot of stuff on their own, and I fully understand why they do that. I probably don't. I'm probably one of the few people you'll meet in CrossFit that don't subscribe. I just am not the guy that's like, man, everybody needs to do this. I think that it takes a unique individual to do this, and those just happen to be my people, right? I think in life you got to find your folks, and I found in my time that like that's probably my groove of folks in the world, and I'm cool with that.
Cool. Beautiful way to wrap it up. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you and give you one more question. If you mentioned that each year since you've started CrossFit, you wrote that note in your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it called again? It was the food addiction.
Food addiction to CrossFit box. Yep.
Okay. Is there, and you mentioned one of those lessons that you've written down already, right? If you find someone that's been doing this for 10 plus years, right, lean into them. Is there another one that comes to mind that is one that maybe you feel like comes to mind more often through day-to-day life, whatever it is? Is there one that sticks out for you, if you're willing to share it?
Yeah. So there's actually, they go hand in hand, man. The first one is about motivation. There tends to be this, like, when you talk to somebody that's not like living the fitness life or like doing anything for themselves, they make comments often like, and sometimes I just think they're tongue in cheek or like, I don't know what you call those, backhanded compliments. I just wish I was as motivated as you. Mm-hmm. Dude, I'm not motivated. Like, I told somebody this the other day. When I'm standing in front of a mirror butt naked, the remnants are that I abused my body for 20 some years. I don't get the physical benefits. Like I'm not walking around like in an aesthetically pleasing shell. Don't get me wrong. I look better in clothes probably than I did then, but like I get that raw moment twice a day or 3 times a day when I have to shower after I work out that I ruin my body. I see it. Right. So like, I'm not doing this for vanity, because I'm always met with that at some point. It's a non-negotiable. It's not motivation. And I would even hesitate to call it discipline. I just think like, I don't look at it any differently than prioritizing protein with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or having to breathe. It's just very much ingrained. And number 2 is the accountability side. I think there's a lot of, and I've kind of gathered this over just through different gyms. For me, I've had to learn to lean into accountability. And I think that when somebody's so generally, when another member at your box is trying to hold you accountable, they're doing it with, I would just say, assume positive intent. The intention is not to call you out or make you look bad or make you insecure. That person has watched you. That person has spent time with you and knows what you're capable of, or at least they feel they know what you're capable of. And they care enough to say something. And we live in a society, man, where like folks aren't honest with folks. They're just not. You know what I mean? Like the guys like Rick and the guys like Hurley and the guys like Will and the guys like Rob Falls and Tom Balesta that held me accountable, that knew that I was probably taking it a little bit lighter than I should, that called me out, I am immensely grateful for, because they knew what I was capable of. They cared enough about me to be honest. Whether they were right doesn't really matter. What matters is that they cared enough about who I am as a person to hold me to a standard that they thought I was capable of achieving. You know what I mean? Beautiful. And to me, like we don't have, that's a fiber of our society that for whatever reason has kind of gone away.
Yeah. But it's also like, it's deeply embedded, I would say, in the CrossFit community, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the community aspect, whether it's other members. Some places better than others, obviously, right? It's not across the board, but I would say it's one of the things at the core of what we do, right?
Yeah.
Is coming in, throwing down together, looking at the people next to you and being like, hey, like, something going on, because I believe in you and I know you're capable of more. So like, is everything okay? Or are you just, do we need to have a little accountability chat, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for, your time today. This is a long time, and for your openness and everything, and sharing your story. I know we kind of touched on this a little bit before we started recording, but it's we are recording this on World Mental Health Day too, which I know is at the core of excuse me, a lot of the story behind your story, right? Is working through that. So is there anything on that topic? I mean, I'm kind of leaving this one open to your interpretation. Anything on that topic that you want to mention to anybody that's listening around the mental health aspect, considering the day it is?
Yeah, look, I would just say this, like, I've never taken mental health meds. I'm not gonna, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think some people need them and they're there, right? But this has been that med in a lot of ways for me. I think there's a blow that you get in a slap in the face with real life that you get through this level of training that provides immense relief. Again, man, like when I say CrossFit changed my life, like that's really what I'm talking about. Is it gives me that time every day to just and come in and grind and put everything else in the back burner. And I'm very fortunate in my job that I have a director that understands that and allows me that time. And I have my supervisors that report to me, like they understand that time. Like I'm going to be in the gym from 5 to 6. It is what it is. But I would say like prioritize that, find that. And I think that fitness is a great addition. I'm not going to say it's going to fix it. Again, I think like everybody's level of struggle is different. But it's certainly an element that before you start to walk down some of those psychoactive medication, make sure this is an element that's there. While I think people need that stuff, and that stuff provides immense relief as well, I think to do it without this fitness side, you're just robbing yourself of quite a bit of potential. Awesome.
Dave, thank you again so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story and everything you've gone through and been willing to share, and, keep showing up, right? That's one of the many lessons that I'm taking away from this is regardless of this, is keep showing up, keep walking through that door. So awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you again so much for the time and for sharing.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you too. Thanks for having me on, man.
You got it. All right. See you, everybody.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. To get notified of future episodes, please follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you can continue to hear these stories. For more behind-the-scenes content of everyday CrossFitters, follow on YouTube and Instagram at Silverback Media. Until next time, this has been the Silverback Media Podcast.